If you've retired and you have no idea where to take money from or how to take money out of my accounts, you're not alone. Many people, when they shift from the accumulation phase to distribution, are very concerned about how do I actually think about taking money out of my accounts. So that is what the bucket strategy is and what it helps to alleviate. One of the ways people distribute funds in retirement is the bucket strategy. And so today we're going to go over what the bucket strategy is and how people use it and how it's supposed to help reduce some of the anxiety that retirees have when they go from that accumulation phase to distribution phase. The bucket strategy for retirement distribution is really to accommodate a mindset shift from accumulation to distribution. Accumulation is when you're working and you're putting money in your 401k savings and you're like, this is great, I get a paycheck, I put money away. The distribution phase is what happens when you retire because the income, that paycheck, stops coming in. And now you've got all this money that you're sitting on, you're like, I don't know how to take it out appropriately or safely. I got money I want to spend now, but I also have money that I need to spend in 20 years. How do I make sure that my assets are working for me appropriately for the time of life they're intended for? The bucket strategy is a simple way to take your money and segregate it into different component piles or pieces to fund different parts of your lifestyle. As you go through life, you'll refill them based on what might be going on. Let's look at what some of these buckets might look like. For instance, bucket one, let's say we'll do 3 buckets. You have 3 buckets. What do you have in your buckets? You've got bucket 1, 2, and 3. So inside your buckets, these might have different time frames associated with them. For a lot of people, bucket 1 would be short-term spending needs. This is like 1 to 3 years. It could be 6 months, could be 1 year, just whatever is comfortable for you and your financial plan. But ultimately, what you're trying to do with that kind of short-term spending money is say, okay, I can put in here, I might use money markets or CDs or bonds, short-term bonds. Whatever that might fill up bucket 1 is going to be investments and allocations that aren't really susceptible to the whims of the economy. So whatever happens to the economy, it's not going to affect your near-term spending money. Then people say, okay, well, I've got my current spending taken care of for, let's say, the next 6 months. I've got that in the money market. It's getting, at today's rates, it's getting maybe 4%. But then what happens when I get away from that? What happens in year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? So that's where we start to look at the next bucket, which might be, let's say it's like years 2 to 7, 2 to 8. These could be a little bit more aggressive because they've got more time to allow them to work out. So this could be high yield bonds. It could be dividend paying stocks. These are typically less volatile equities. You could have corporate bonds that might have a longer duration on them, maybe something that comes due in 5, 6, or 7 years. So you're starting to build out more risk in that second bucket, but you're doing it in a way that you're saying, you know what, mentally, I know that if the market goes down next week, I'm not going to sell my dividend paying stocks because I've got cash already set aside to fund my expenses, to fund my lifestyle. And then we go to the third bucket, which is long term, and this is 7+ years. This is where you're going to have your more aggressive approaches. So that could be stocks, could be private equity, it could be real estate. I'm particularly thinking about rental housing, buying into a commercial building. It's something that's illiquid but has a longer term horizon because you're like, well, I'm going to get rental income down the road on this thing. And that's where that third bucket's going to be. When you start to think about how these buckets are working together, what you're doing is you're basically always trying to look at, how do I start to refill this first bucket? Because if things are going really well in the market, your long-term bucket could be doing really well. In order to balance out your buckets, you might be able to sell from your long-term bucket to refill the short-term bucket. Or maybe you've been pulling from your second intermediate-term bucket. Maybe that's where it's going. It's been refilling your first bucket. And now you can use bucket 3 to refill bucket 2. It gives you options in how and when you refill the buckets based on the market. The primary thing that bucket strategy is known for, and the reason that people like it, is because you always know you have this short-term bucket of money over here, and this is going to be less affected by the market. So less affected, less impacted, and it's going to provide for that stable monthly income that you expect, regardless of what's going on in the economy. The longer buckets, intermediate, long-term, those can do what they're going to do, and you can use those to refill the first bucket based on what's going on in the world. But Bucket one is the one we care about because bucket one is the money you're spending next week, next month, 6 months from now. So that's really the big mindset shift with the bucketing approach. You've got a couple of different piles of money, each with a different intention. Refill the short-term bucket as quickly as possible in order to make sure that regardless of what happens, you have money that you can spend that's not at the whims of Mr. Market. If you have questions about how this works or how people use it, please let us know. We can go through our planning software with you and talk about how we think about buckets. The bucket strategy isn't about your investments per se. It's more about the piles of wealth that you've accumulated and how you're shifting money from being long-term focused investments to how do I get that to a place where I can comfortably spend it, knowing that it's not at the risk of what's going on in the market. We are happy to walk through how we think about the bucket strategy, how that fits into a financial plan, and how we might modify it to better suit your needs within the context of a properly diversified and constructed financial plan. If you would like to learn more, you can always download the Retirement Ready Checklist. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow us for more helpful tips on investing in retirement.